Hi, everyone, and welcome to our fireside chat on the power of cloud security, strategies for the hybrid workplace. On behalf of eSecurity Solutions and Fortinet, I'd like to welcome you all and thank you for joining us today. My name is Crystal, and I'll be your moderator. I'm joined by security experts Alexander Mayhat and Tom Ruffalo. Before we get started, the session will be recorded and distributed after the event. If you have any questions, please utilize the Q&A box, and our experts will answer them live. So if there's anything you've been wondering about, or if you have a question about something that comes up during the discussion, our experts would love to weigh in. And with that, I will turn it over to Tom for an introduction.
Hi, I'm Tom Ruffalo. I am the CEO of eSecurity Solutions, a CISA. I've been running this business for like 20 years, so I'm all about security. I love security. I wake up in the morning thinking about security, and there's a lot of changes and going on in the environment right now. And that's what we're going to talk about today, which is primarily cloud security related issues and solutions. eSecurity Solutions provides risk assessments, managed security, and security products to its customers. We're B2B focused, and we're here to try to solve companies' solutions from end to end. And that's what we've been doing, and it's what we're going to keep doing. And we're happy to talk to you today, so looking forward to it.
Alex, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Alexandra Mayhat. So I'm Product Marketing Director for the SASE solution at Fortinet. Very happy to be here with you, and thank you, eSecurity, for having me for this fireside chat. I'm also living and breathing cybersecurity at Fortinet for sure, and very happy to be here with you all and discuss SASE today.
Wonderful. All right, let's get started. The first question I'll have for Alexandra. What are the typical challenges you see today in remote work security and endpoint protection?
Sure. Well, today, a lot of organizations have different type of security solution, whether in the office or for their remote workers, if they even have any for their remote workers. So usually they have VPN type of solutions for their workers, either working from home or when they're traveling, when they're at a coffee shop or in an RV in the middle of the US. Some of them are doing that since COVID. And the issue we see here is that brings security gaps between the office and the remote locations. So for example, when you're on a VPN, you only get security if you're connected to the VPN, if you log in. So when you're not logged into the VPN, well, you never know what type of malware or anything that you can bring to your computer. And then once you log in back to your VPN, well, these malwares or a virus or anything can be brought to your whole corporate applications. So here we see really one of the challenges we see is these security gaps. Another one is also the lack of visibility. A lot of IT teams have issues seeing what people do when they're outside of the office, when they're, as I said, in a coffee shop or traveling. And so not having consistent security and a full solution throughout on-prem and remote users can bring, lack of visibility on what people are doing, what type of application they're accessing, and monitoring everything they do on the internet, for example. So these are really two main challenges we see today: security gaps and lack of visibility.
Great. Tom, do you have any thoughts on some of the challenges that you are seeing in remote work and security and endpoint security?
Yeah, I mean, related to remote workers, I think there's two really big challenges. The first one is protecting the remote worker themselves, which is naturally what everybody thinks about when you start talking about protecting, what do you need for remote workers? But really the biggest challenge is protecting the company from the workers. The workers, your employees can access all your data now from remote locations. They can store the data, potentially wherever they want. They can do potentially more than they could before because you have to give them access over the internet. Plus, you've exposed your data over the internet. So it's actually a much more dangerous world for the companies. The employees, yes, they need to be protected too, and there's a lot of solutions around protecting their environments. But I would say, number one, companies need to protect their data, and they need to make sure that they're providing appropriate access control around that data, wherever it might be. And the remote employees, which could be, used to be we thinking about remote workers that are traveling. Now it's really people working out of their homes, and how can we protect those environments and then protect the data from the people in those environments.
So why is this the time for companies to review their security to include cloud security threats? Is it a time for a complete reset on how companies architect their security, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a bunch of stuff going on in the IT infrastructure environment, if you will, that make this the time to do something different than you were doing before. And for me, this is the number one thing I've been talking to people about, is that your assets are moving rapidly to the cloud. And we're talking about your people out working from home or traveling. You're talking about cloud applications. So all those applications that used to be on-prem are now moving to the cloud. And then you've got your servers rapidly moving to the cloud. So we used to have a centralized environment that we could protect, and now we have all your assets, your data, and your apps, and potentially your people distributed, cast to the wind, if you will, and everything is accessible over the internet. So that is not the way the environment used to be. And if everything's accessible to the internet, that means anybody can access it if they have the right credentials and or they have the ability to hack into your system. So you've got employees, partners, attackers you have to worry about. You've got people, apps, and servers. You no longer have stuff behind a protectable barrier, and also many of your assets are protected or at least hosted by third parties. So the natural tendency is to assume that those third parties are protecting your data, and depending upon which situation, if they're talking about applications, are they trying to protect your data? Yes, they are. If you're talking about a cloud server hosted by Amazon or Microsoft, they don't make claims that they're protecting your data. And we'll talk more about that again later. But I mean, it's analogous to some of the stuff that happened over time. And I'm kind of a student of history here related to security. If you looked at the history of security, the internet came about, and that opened up the doors to threats. We had email security. Email was launched, and that opened up threats. We have Windows and all the iterations of Windows, each one of them offering up a new set of threat vectors. We have networks that used to be, there didn't used to be PC networks, and so every time there was a major change to infrastructure and to technology, it provided a new set of opportunities for efficiencies in businesses, but also provided a lot of new threat vectors.
Alex, both you and Tom talked about how employees are continually shifting between locations, home, office, on the road. How does a business go about creating a consistent user experience that doesn't change regardless of where the users are?
Well, here I'm going to start talking about some Fortinet solutions and how Fortinet approach is regarding security. So Fortinet's approach is really what we call the security fabric, and a unified technology, operating system, and tools that are consistent across all our solutions. So for example, at Fortinet, our flagship product is our firewall, FortiGate. That is perfect for securing your office. So either as a hardware or voice VM or whatever form factor you want to, that is adapted to your organization. And this FortiGate technology is based on our operating system that we find in all of our solutions. So for example, our SASE solution that protects remote users also works on that same OS, same technology. So the idea really at Fortinet is you have consistent security across your offices as well as your remote locations with the same type of technology, the same management, the same agent you use across everything. And wherever your employee is, he'll have the same agent on his laptop. He'll connect to the same type of technology, the same AI-powered services that we call FortiGuard will be used wherever they are in the office or outside of the office. So really the idea of creating this consistent user experience, whether you're on-premise or outside of the office or in a branch, depending on the size of your organization, whether small or if you have multiple offices and multiple remote locations, then you can really create a consistent security throughout everything. That's really the Fortinet approach, and this security doesn't change. Same policies, same profiles for the user across all locations. That's really the Fortinet advantage.
Great. Tom, what are some of the new areas to protect in a cloud-enabled world?
Well, there's really three major areas that companies need to think about. There's cloud applications, which are all, like I said, are moving to the cloud. I mean, if you think, and I'm not even sure how much everybody thinks about these things, but it kind of creeps up on you. I mean, payroll systems are all in the cloud. Your QuickBooks or your accounting system is probably in the cloud. You've got your HR systems are be in the cloud. We've got a 401k system is in the cloud. I mean, all these, everything, your manufacturing, engineering, it's all moving to the cloud. So you've got cloud applications, and with the cloud application, you've got your data, and you've got distinct sets of data with around each application that need to be protected, and you need visibility on that. And mostly, you need to be able to control access to it. And when I say control access, I mean who accesses and how. So not every vendor provides the same consistency and and how they allow you to access it and control it, and not all of them protect the data the same way. So it's your job, again, it's our jobs as companies to protect our own data. Our remote workers, we talked about protecting the remote workers at home and protecting their environment. So we've got all these as a service kind of solutions like firewall service and so forth and so on, web as a service that have been designed around solving that problem. And then we've got your servers that have moved to the cloud, and a lot of smaller companies haven't done as much, but as a whole, that's a huge trend, and you have to assume that the Amazons and the Microsofts are not protecting your data. There's a model for that. We'll talk about it a bit, but bottom line is they don't. And so your cloud apps, remote workers, and then of course the corporate environment from the remote workers, and then your private and public cloud servers are the three areas that have to be focused on.
Alex, do you have anything to add to that, to Tom's thought?
No, definitely, there are three big areas where you need to protect the workers. As Tom said, a lot of applications are now in the cloud, all the SaaS applications, such as, I don't know, Salesforce, Office 365, Dropbox, and all these type of applications where, well, it comes back to the visibility. You really need to be able to see what the user does, where he goes, what content he sends to these and gets from these SaaS applications. And that's definitely one thing to secure. Another one, same as Tom said, is the corporate application. Traditionally, it was in a data center in the office, but now everything, some of it are moving to the cloud also, to AWS, to Azure, to these type of public clouds, but it's still your corporate applications. It's still the applications you want to fully secure access to, and you want to make sure that you have the right access to the right application. And third one is, of course, the internet, the websites. You need to make sure that wherever the person goes to, whatever website, even if it's a HTTPS website, when you need to do deep SSL inspection, that you need to fully secure access to any website, monitor everything, and you can define different level of security depending on the type of users and where they are and what they're doing. Definitely these three aspects: SaaS, corporate application, and internet.
And Alexandra, so companies likely have employees whose home networks are filled with retail grade security and some unsecured devices. So how would they ensure that their devices that are connecting to the network are safe?
Well, so some, as I said, mainly today, some companies are using a VPN, but it's not an always on type of security. So there's like at least now 70% of the companies, this is a Gartner number, 70% of the companies are looking to moving from VPN to zero trust architecture by 2025. Zero trust network access, ZTNA, many of you might certainly have heard of it, allows way more granular authentication and always on poster check, always on check on which application you access. And once you have the agent on your laptop, wherever you go with this laptop and whatever you want to connect to, the system in the cloud, the SASE system and the ZTNA system will check your device, your credentials, maybe also you can define the type of OS you have on your laptop, you have the version of antivirus, so everything is checked, all your credentials, your device, to make sure that you're allowed access to each application. And it's really at the application level, and it's a consistent poster check, and it's going to check every time you get access to this application. So here really how you make sure of having always on security is moving towards this zero trust architecture with way more granular authentication and constant poster check when you want to access corporate applications. That's one of the, and this ZTNA is part of our SASE solution at Fortinet.
Great. To Tom, what kinds of security is needed to be added or enhanced to protect today's cloud-enabled threats?
Yeah, so this is really the gist of it, right? It's like, what's the total set of solutions that you need to be thinking about when it comes to protecting the cloud environment as a whole? And so number one, which we haven't talked about yet, is we talked a little bit about access control, but access control is multiple components. And so the first thing I would say about cloud security or anything, even you talk about zero trust or whatever, is not one thing. And of course, security has never been just one thing. If you look at the set of controls that regulations are want you to audit against, there's 14 categories or something, and there's like 100 and some different subcategories. There's a reason for that, is because every company has a different set of needs based on their security environment and their goals. So when it comes to cloud security, access control is number one. It's if you don't control access, then all the other security is kind of moot, right? So you can't let people in, which means MFA has got to be something that has to become a regular part of your security. SSO doesn't necessarily make you more secure, but it can make you more secure because it's centralized and it makes it easier to use. So therefore, maybe it is more secure because it's more easily used and less likely to have multiple easy passwords or whatever. So MFA with SSO is number one. Zero trust as part of access control. I mean, zero trust is all about access control. We can talk more about that later. The cloud infrastructure. For cloud infrastructures, you've got virtual firewalls. Again, you can't assume that Amazon or Azure are protecting your data. So virtual firewalls, you've got EDR type endpoint security on those servers needs to be there. For the home environment, you've got endpoint security, ideally EDR as well, endpoint detection and response. You've got email security, which, like access control is the number one thing you need, tool that you need to use. Email is the number one threat. So email security, even though people consider, a lot of companies think, oh, Microsoft Office 365 is providing all the email security we need. The reality is, even if it's good, it's a good idea to have 2 email security programs running, because they're not going to be the same and they're going to catch different things, and your user is never even going to know that you had 2 different solutions, right? So I would seriously consider looking at 2 email security solutions. Web security is another category, and firewalls themselves. So if you're looking at the home environment, firewall as a service, web security as a service, email, which is also cloud-based, all can be there for home users, and that's normally a part of a zero trust environment. And there's a reason why you do that. Is because now you don't have to install all those things at every home user's location, but you give them the benefit of what they would have if they were in a corporate office. Lastly, top level security monitoring, which you would get through a SIEM and managed by a 24/7 SOC. So security information event monitoring solution to monitor all your security and all your key IT is a must, and it's even more important in a distributed environment, because now you have to make sure you're collecting all this data from all these locations and correlating it, and there may be patterns and things that you can't see, and you would never be able to see looking at everything individually. You just don't have the resources to do that, and even if you did, people can't mentally correlate things like that. They can't do it. So that's what a SIEM is for. That is the top level solution that's generally recommended by most regulations. And cyber insurance, sorry.
Great.
That's it.
Alex and Tom, we heard you both talk about zero trust and cloud security. So how does this improve an organization's security posture?
Yeah, as I said before, zero trust is definitely always on. That's the most important part. And it's also a granular way of accessing one application at a time. For example, I'm in product marketing, and if I want to access an HR application, which I would have had access to with VPN, with zero trust, they might have said, no, sorry, marketing is not allowed to access an HR application. And this is checked every time I want to access any application. So, and it runs in the background. I don't need to log in or relog in the agent. I need to put my credentials for the application, depending on how the company has configured it. Or you can also use SSO throughout all of your application if you want to. But it's definitely a way to have a way more granular security and a constant poster check for all your access to corporate application or even to SaaS applications. And definitely, as Tom was saying, eSecurity is also able to provide you SOC as a service and stuff like that, so that you have a constant security throughout, and you can really analyze everything that's happening and make the right corrections or configurations so that you're fully secure everywhere. I just had a call this morning actually with one of our customers that's going to do a case study for us. He has SOC as a service, and when we asked him, so did you have any malware that project? I'm like, he was like, yeah, I think we had something before we put that in place, but since then, haven't seen anything. I'm thinking I'm fully protected. I'm all good. They have SASE and they have SOC as a service, and so they're fully protected. And he's like, I just configure it. I just add people when people are hired, and that's it. I almost don't hear about it. So it's like peace of mind at all levels. It's for the IT teams. It's always on. It's monitored, and you just stay safe.
Yeah, can I make a comment on that, if you don't mind? So just talking about zero trust. So as I said before, zero trust I think it's easy to ignore buying zero trust solutions because it's like, okay, it's some monolithic thing. It's too complicated. There's too much to it, too expensive. I don't need to bite off anything like that. And here's what I would say about zero trust. First of all, zero trust is a concept, right? It basically says, I don't trust anybody. And the reason I can't trust anybody or anything is because it's too dangerous to the world. And why is it more dangerous? Because we don't have all of our employees behind a central firewall anymore with a bunch of tools and security trying to prevent them from being breached or attacked. I don't have all my data behind my firewall either. So because it's so much more dangerous and there's so much of a higher likelihood that I'm going to get attacked, I need a different set of tools to do that. And so what companies like Fortinet are doing is they're providing solutions that replicate what you would get behind a firewall and then adding a true zero trust concept behind that. So things like MFA existed before. It's more important now than ever before. Firewalls, web security are all things that you can now get in the cloud as a service. Firewall as a service. You can get web security as a service. CASB, which is something that small companies have ignored now for the last X number of years, is super important. And at the risk of going into answering a question that hasn't been asked yet, CASB, the whole point of CASB, which is to protect the cloud application environment, is multiple components. Number one is you want to understand who's using these cloud applications in your company. Number one, visibility. Are they being controlled, right? So first of all, is it authorized or not authorized? Do I have the ability to stop my employees from accessing certain cloud apps that aren't approved by the company, and or can I control the way they access it? So that I can say, okay, to access it, you have to have MFA. You can only do certain. It's only read only. You can't take data off of these servers that are hosted by my ADP or whoever, and I can't download it, or I can't. Some people can, some people can't. Maybe different roles for different groups. So being able to control that for cloud applications and providing appropriate control and access control and usage control is super important for application usage. And that just became more important now because everything's in the cloud and my employees are in the cloud. They're all accessing over the internet. Nothing goes through my company unless you control it in some way. So, and then ZTNA, as Alexander pointed out, is bolted on top of all that to really manage in a micro way who can access what and what they can do with it. And that's the concept. These can be purchased individually based on your needs as a company, right? You don't have to buy the whole ball of wax. You don't have to get 10 things bundled together if you don't want to, or you can't afford it. And also, as I hate to say it, it's just software, right? So sometimes companies can be very aggressive in how they price things as well. So, I mean, we're here to fight for our employees for our customers and make sure they get what they need for the right price. But I'd rather have, when we look at working with our customers, we want to make sure that if you have a budget of X and your company needs all these things because you've done a risk assessment and you prioritize gaps and what you need to solve, that you spread that budget evenly and get as much as you can for the dollar. And again, almost everything is software now, so it makes it a lot easier to do that. Period.
Great. And along those lines, Alexander, how would you bring operational efficiency and lower TCO, total cost of ownership, in today's hybrid work world?
Yeah, so as Tom said, actually, sorry, I have words there, hopefully you don't hear it. As Tom said, you can either buy each component separately if you want different types of security and different security accesses. But what we do pretty well at Fortinet too is have also bundles and everything all inclusive for you, where you like no surprise on the budget at the end of the day. For example, SASE includes ZTNA, includes the agent, includes CASB, includes firewall as a service and secure web gateway all in one license. You can also buy everything separately, as Tom said. Also, a really good way of reducing the TCO is through, well, vendor consolidation. Of course, that's the Fortinet approach, where the same vendor for both on-prem and remote security allows you to have simpler operations that will reduce costs, and also a faster onboarding of all your IT teams and your employees. So that's also a way of reducing the total TCO for a company, where consolidating all the vendors for networking and for security.
So Tom, who's protecting my cloud server data?
Yeah, so I talked a little bit about that before, the cloud applications. I mean, so rather than beat that horse to death, what I'd like to say, I'd like to beat another horse to death, and that is that it's super important for companies to step back and take a look at what their security is now versus what it used to be. It's so easy to be meat and potatoes. We've got a firewall, we've got endpoint. Maybe we update the EDR because we're super enlightened. The reality is that it's a new paradigm in the way our data and our systems and our IT and our people and everything, our assets are distributed across everything now, and it's all accessible over the internet. It's time to take a look at what the priorities are for your company and where the biggest risks are, and then attack them one by one. These solutions can be purchased over a time, a certain length of time. You can develop a roadmap. I mean, if you did a risk assessment, and by the way, we can do risk assessments, what a surprise. But we can do very cost-effective risk assessments with the goal of providing you a list of priorities, prioritize gaps and prioritize solutions. That can turn into a security roadmap. And that roadmap then can be something that we work together on helping you implement over time. And that's, the products or services or managed services or what it might take. But it's time to start transitioning to add solutions that augment your security, to provide you security with to solve problems that you didn't have before. And it's time to do that. And the tools are out there. Like I said, they're software, they're cost effective. So the only thing limiting you from doing that would be developing the roadmap and realizing that these are risks that have to be attacked over time. And it's not all something, you can't do everything all at once. You can try if you want, but the point is, smaller companies need to be thinking about how they can do these over time. And it's like, if you're a bank, you're getting audited, the bank would come in, or the auditors would come in and say, you have all these things, you've got 12 months to go fix that. That's the concept that I think smaller companies should be using to think about their security.
Alexandra, so you've talked about SASE a bit, but can you maybe dig in a little bit more, tell us more about this technology, some of the major benefits in terms of security and ease of deployment, ease of maintenance, all of that good stuff?
Sure. Little advertising for SASE now. There's way more solutions that eSecurity provides, and it's a great partner for that. But SASE, as I said, it's a nice little bundle of everything that includes our FortiClient agent with ZTNA, firewall as a service, secure web gateway, as well as the CASB aspect for all the SaaS security. So it provides secure internet access, secure SaaS access, and secure private access to your applications. It also is fully integrated with our secure SD-WAN solution for larger enterprises that might have different branches and that want to have intelligent routing and steering for all their branches, and security that goes with it, because definitely one of the benefits of Fortinet is to include both in one. And SASE is securing your remote workers, and with the full integration with SD-WAN, it's a full consistent security throughout your on-premise and remote work. Same type of security, as I said, the same agent, the same operating system, same AI-powered FortiGuard services. So it provides things like DLP, data leak prevention, antivirus, anti-malware, SSL, deep SSL inspection, everything you need to fully secure your remote employees wherever they're working. as well, everything we discussed since the beginning, everything's included in SASE. And as Tom said, it's a journey. It's not going to be SASE overnight, because you have the agents to deploy, and you can deploy it by pieces if you want. If you want to start with the ZTNA aspects, you can do that, and then little by little deploy. And that's definitely something eSecurity is doing really well, is to really accompany you and advise you on your journey towards SASE and towards security in general. As Tom said, there's of course email security, EDR, all other types of SOC as a service, etc. All other type of security services that is security can advise you on and see what's the best journey for you and your organization.
Yeah, I could add to that if you want. Or I don't.
I'm sure you can. Because you're the expert with this one.
I'm just older than everybody. That doesn't make sense. So what I would say is, so SASE is so Secure Access Service Edge. I mean, it sounds cool to say SASE, but the reality is the concept is all about what we've been talking about, which is taking the protection that used to have that was centralized and conceptually extending that model out to protect things that are not centralized, that are all out here. So it's like having a big perimeter, right, that protects everything, and it goes around every single thing, and then it goes around everything. And that is, the concept is, how do we take that model that used to work and extend it to something that is totally out of control so that it kind of works again. And that's what we've been talking about. Those components we already talked about. I'm not going to list them again. What I would say is, though, that there's a concept called XDR, which every security vendor talks about because it's super cool, and it's also another acronym that you can't remember. So conceptually, XDR is about integrating security within a vendor's product line in a way that provides a more meaningful experience, because those security components can talk to each other, provide intelligence, and then potentially do good things. If let's say you detect a threat here, you can shut down something in like an endpoint, or vice versa. Maybe it's at the firewall, shuts down the endpoint shuts down something in the firewall. But that's a concept that isn't part of SASE specifically, but it is a new concept that's part of security architectures, and every vendor's got it now. I mean, Fortinet's got one of the broadest product lines, no question, and they're enterprise focused, and their stuff scales down. So they've got a solution that does all this stuff, but conceptually that's important. And if you're thinking about going forward and what you're going to invest in, some set of your solutions probably need to be with a single vendor, because you're going to get the benefit of XDR, and then of course the SIEM on top of that integrates everything, whether it could be from different vendors or not, right? So you've got two different things. One is intra-product, intra-vendor integration, and you've got the stuff that integrates at the top level, which is a SIEM and a SOC that manages that. And all of that, those should be important considerations as you make decisions about purchases going forward and your security product roadmap. That's it.
Great. Don't forget, if you guys have any questions, please utilize the Q&A box and ask any questions. We did get a question come through about how is access control affected by the cloud? Tom, if you want to take that one.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, so the biggest issue with access control, right, is two things. There's authentication, which is the front end part, right? So who have you defined that can access these portals, whether it be your admin guys going to your servers in the cloud, or whether it be your users going to the different applications? I will tell you this. So like if you look at securing a cloud application is multiple levels, right? The first level is MFA prevents makes it so only the people that can access are the people you said you could, and you could authenticate their identity to make sure that if these 3 people should be able to access it, they're the only 3 people that get it. That's A, right? B, there's a bunch of stuff you need to do, like even in selecting the applications, right? If you're selecting a bank, you want to make sure that they support, multiple levels of authentication. You want to make sure that they've got approval cycles built into it, which is a part of security. You want to make sure that every individual has a certain set of access capabilities that are defined in it, and that could be an accounting app or a payroll app or anything else. It's all part of the security chain. If you're really responsible for security for a company, that all is part of making your cloud applications more secure. So yes, we can help with like MFA and CASB, but even the applications that you select are super important. Zero Trust as an umbrella that gives you granular control of who can access what across the organization. That could apply to SharePoint and everything else, is super important, right? So MFA, CASB, ZTNA are all super important. But I'm encouraging everybody to think about the entire food chain, not just you control whether they get in, but what can they do after that? And in some cases, it may mean that you should recommend to one of your departments that they pick another vendor, because not all vendors are providing. I mean, I'm actually being transitioned from one bank to the other right now. My first bank, I was fighting with them to do MFA properly. They've been purchased by another bank, and guess what? They've got RSA soft tokens now coming. So I know they've solved the problem. Bigger bank, better solution, better security. But I was very conscious of that. And at some point, that's important enough that I'm going to switch banks, because I cannot afford to be breached once. I can't afford to have somebody else getting paid like payroll account within payroll accounts. If you get into a payroll account, you can add payees, and next thing you know, you have employees whose bank accounts are in Switzerland or something. Dangerous world.
It is, and then on that, I think we've answered all our questions we've had so far. We have a few minutes, so if anybody wants to type in any questions as we're closing, but I'll turn it over first to Alexander if you have any closing thoughts that you would like to share.
Yeah, well, for sure, definitely, as Tom was saying, you don't want to wait for your first breach to take us to buy a security solution. It's like same as a car insurance. Well, I'm of course talking about SASE, but definitely there are a lot of, as Tom was saying, a lot of other type of solution that might be adapted to your organization and your journey and your way you want to do security. And SASE is a great bundle to do that, but there's also different components in it that you could buy separately and make it your own journey. And as the most important benefits is this consistent security across everything, and this always on security that allows you to secure your internet, your access to your SaaS applications, and your access to your corporate application wherever they are located in the cloud or in your office. And I hope the explanation was helpful, and feel free to reach out to any of us, and definitely to eSecurity for all your security solution needs. And thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you, Alexandra. Tom, any final thoughts before we close?
Yeah, my final thoughts aren't on cloud security. My final thoughts are, the cloud security represents the fact that you need to be planning your security going forward, and you need to be dealing with new threats. And we've outlined a whole bunch of new threats that are real, and they're here today. And it's just a question of when they catch up to you. And just because they haven't been in the news like ransomware was, when ransomware came out, everybody scrambled, especially small companies, to get new endpoint security and maybe data backup and a bunch of other stuff. We don't want to wait for the next ransomware to come about because people are attacking certain cloud applications or hosted servers, in public hosted servers, or home users, or whatever the deal might be. Once something gets exploited in this day and age, it gets exploited very, very quickly because the hackers' tools can be replicated. And in fact, our tools, they're sold over the internet and they can be deployed very quickly and broadly. So you don't want to be behind the 8 ball. So think about the threats and how they've changed and what this means to your security plans. And then let us help you figure out that roadmap, and we'll work with you on your budget and your time frame and everything else. But we're here to help you with risk assessments to determine these things, security, managed security, including SIEM/SOC, and providing you with Fortinet solutions as well to solve these problems. And thank you also for attending today. Thank you, Crystal. Thank you, Alexandra.
Pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom and Alexander. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for the examples and the outline on how to provide cloud delivered security to hybrid workers. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today, and we hope you found the time well spent. If you have any questions or want any additional information after the session today, we will be following up and sharing the recording of the session in the event you'd like to watch it again or share it with any of your colleagues. But again, thank you, and we hope everybody has a great day.
Yep. Yeah, we will be sending that out to everyone. So just you'll get that through your email, and our salespeople will reach out to you about helping you, on your journey, as Steve Jobs would say. Thank you all.